Yes, everybody, welcome back to the final match preview here on Talking Wolves for the 24-25 Premier League season. We will be remaining as a Premier League team as well. We secured that survival some weeks ago, but what a strange old season, full of ups and downs, a couple of managers involved, and look, at times it's been a little bit of a slog, but there are still some great moments from this season, and fingers crossed we can finish it on a high. As always, be giving you my thoughts. The latest from Vitor Pereira's pre-match press conference. We'll have the Brentford perspective later on in the video as well. But once again, big thanks to Match Bingo, who have partnered with us for the match preview today, combining two things that I tend to enjoy doing of a weekend with sports and a little bit of betting, but with a twist. Obviously, you can go onto Match Bingo using the link in the top of the description, and you can buy yourself a bingo card and tick off things that may or may not happen in the Brentford Wolves game. So as you can see, with one of my cards for the match, we need Wolves to score a right-footed goal, have an attempt saved, kick off a half, have an offside. I think a lot of these I should be able to tick off. However, I think I'll struggle to get a full house because we may need to see a penalty. But we'll wait and see. It's a long shot maybe with that one. But if you want to get involved and come up against me and see who can get the first line, second line, and a full house first, a link will be in the top of the description down below. But final game of the season for Wolves. And you know what? It's been it's been a weird campaign really. But I'm just glad that we are at the end of it. We're definitely safe. All really we've got to fight for now is league places and league positions. We saw a pretty disappointing performance during the week against Crystal Palace, if I'm honest. However, with our opponents in Brentford, who have had decent form against us over the last couple of attempts, I think they've beaten us the last two visits, or the last two times we've played them, sorry. They've still got something to fight for. Although it's a long shot, they could still get European football. We'll talk about it later on in the opposition perspective. A lot of things do need to fall into place for them. But if Brentford win, there is an opportunity that they may still get European football. So that is why it's going to be a really, really tricky game, I think, for Wolves at Molineux on Sunday. Our form on the final game of the season hasn't been great historically anyway. But I just want to finish the season on a high. It's been a rubbish season. Thankfully, under Vitor Pereira, our form at Molineux has got a little bit better. Unfortunately, I missed the last game at Molineux, although it was a defeat. But I'm hoping we could just end on a high. There's a lot of players that will be out there that probably won't be wearing a Wolves shirt again, to be honest. So hopefully they can give 110%. It can be a nice sign-off. We can all be happy singing at the end of the game, and hopefully we can share a pint with Vitor at Wetherspoons or in town somewhere after the game as well. Now, in regards to Vitor's pre-match press conference, of course, expressed his disappointment about that game against Crystal Palace. I mentioned it last week. He just seems very tired. He's not as bubbly as he was maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, where he was really excited, he was enjoying the winning run, but he just seems a little bit drained, and I think he is ready for a break. You think, obviously, for him, it's been a long year, starting management in Saudi Arabia, having to come over here. He's not living with his family right now as well. I'm sure he cannot wait till around 6:30 p.m. on Sunday when the final whistle goes, and he can go back to Portugal or wherever he wants to go on holiday. But in terms of team news, it was Jorgen Strand Larsen, the big talking point. Sounds like he has a knock and is a major doubt for this game, which is a big loss. Obviously, Jorgen got 2 goal contributions in that defeat to Crystal Palace. He got the goal and he got the assist for Emmanuel Agbadou's opener as well. And I think we really struggle without Jorgen in the team overall. I mentioned it on my last transfer video. A lot of people are saying, why are Wolves linked with strikers all the time? Maybe we're going to change formations. No, I think it's genuinely for situations like this. And I saw a few people moaning about Jorgen maybe being injury prone. I think that is a little bit harsh. I think he's obviously just had a little niggle that he's not really been able to shake off. We saw it at the start of the year, really, and over the last few weeks he's had a little knock. But it's for situations like this. Whenever Jorgen's out of the team, we have really, really struggled to hold up the ball and make an impact up there. And that's why, really, I would have thought that Vitor may look to go back to a full-strength team, but who do you play in that number 9 role? I like Gonzalo Guedes there against Aston Villa, but that was months ago now, and he's not really impressed me since, to be completely honest. Does Hwang come out of the cold completely and start, or do you just slot Cunha in the middle and maybe bring someone either side of him alongside maybe Menetti and someone else. I really, really don't know how Vitor is going to approach this game. I have no doubt Matheus Mane, who in the main broadcast part of the press conference wasn't really asked about much, but I have no doubt Matheus Mane will get more minutes on Sunday as well, and I think he'll be part of the match day squad. But really, I'm not sure who is going to start in that front three. If I took up my predicted lineup now, I think it will be Jose Sarr returning in goal. I think he has to. It was a little bit of a frustrating game and frustrating evening for Dan Bentley on Tuesday at Selhurst Park. Back five, I think Doc will return to the back five alongside Totti and Agbadou. Nelson Semedo to start. Will this be his last game with the captain's armband and in a Wolves shirt, of course? Nouri as well, may well be his last game. Andre and João Gomez in the middle. I think Cunha will start, although I don't think he'll play the full 90. Menetti in there. I'll stick my neck out and say Gedge, but I just don't know. Could be Hwang, could shock us all and have Mane in from the start. We could have Sarabia in, who had a disappointing game on Tuesday, if I'm completely honest. Two other players that are out again, Sam Johnson and Tommy Doyle, both ruled out again. I think that they're going to be showing the door in the summer in some capacity as well. But yeah, it could be a good buy for many of those players that I've just mentioned. It's going to be strange, of course it will be, but Brentford are a tough opposition. Thomas Frank has always given us tricky games, and abused the dark arts maybe a little bit. You remember the first time they came to Molineux and they really knew how to frustrate Wolves and get a win over Bruno Lage's side at the time. But they've got a lot to play for still. They need to, although it's a long shot, they need to give themselves the best chance of qualifying for European football, and they've done so well. I think the players they've got, and Buemo and Wissa, who we were linked with last summer. For them, they've had a really, really productive campaign, I think, and that's what I'll go on to tell Michael now as well in the opposition perspective. So I spoke to Mike from the Ealing Road podcast to get his thoughts on Brentford, how excited he is to maybe have a European push, and his thoughts overall on the season. So then, Mike, thank you for jumping back on Talking Wolves, mate, ahead of Wolves-Brentford, final game of the season. Before we jump into the football, how you been keeping?
Yes, mate, all good. All good. Yourself?
Yeah, all good, thank you. All good. It's been a really, let's say, productive season, I'd say, for Brentford. Once again, never been in trouble. I'm actually looking further up the table, looking at a European spot as well, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a second. But how have you felt the season's gone so far? Would you label it as a success for Brentford?
Yeah, I think so. It's been a bit of a strange season, to be honest. There was so much made at the start about Brentford's really good home record, the poor away record, and then in the second half of the season, it's kind of flipped. It's only now we're starting to see a little bit of balance at home and away. However, the last game against Fulham was compounded by the Palace FA Cup win, which kind of it's not completely off Europe. I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit more, but Palace winning the FA Cup, then losing against our local rivals on Sunday at the G-Tech. It was about as miserable a weekend as I've experienced since we lost in the playoff final against Fulham in the Championship, just because every Brentford fan was watching that FA Cup final really hoping for Palace to win, as I'm sure Brighton, Fulham and Bournemouth fans were as well. The small pocket in the country that actually wanted Crystal Palace to lose that FA Cup final. But yeah, no, I can't complain with the season. We've had quite a few injuries. We're adapting to life without Ivan Toney, but Johan Wissa, Brian and Bumo, 19 goals apiece. That's a big achievement for a club like Brentford, and we could still finish in our highest league position this season. So I can't really have too many complaints about this season.
Yeah, I asked you the question, didn't I, yesterday beforehand? Is Europe still on? Because I was thinking, is there something still for Brentford to play for in this final game, which will hopefully mean Wolves are on it. But I don't think Thomas Frank would ever sort of unnecessarily rotate or so on. But there is still something for Brentford to play for. However, like you said to me yesterday, there's a lot of things that need to fall into place for that to happen. I think you said to me, Brighton have got to draw or lose, Forest have got to beat Chelsea, Villa have got to draw or win, and then Chelsea would have to win the Conference League for that place to fall down. So there's a lot there, but you would still want Thomas Frank to go full strength and do everything to make sure you win at Molineux surely on Sunday.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think even after the Palace result, I made a video about sort of it doesn't need to kind of do a team talk. The team talk kind of writes itself. It's that if there is a chance, that you have to make sure that you're there. Sure. Which was what was slightly frustrating about losing on Sunday against Fulham. It must have just we kind of spoke about it on our pod. It's like the players will have been watching that FA Cup final, and it probably got into their heads a little bit that it's not now in their hands, because if Man City had won, then it would have been in our hands. We would have had 8th position. We would have just needed to win our last 2 games, and then Conference League spot would have gone to us. So there's a lot of things that need to fall into place. I'm a bit of a football romantic, so I won't stop believing until it's fully off.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be it's a bit of a there's too many things to fall into place for it to be kind of for us to be as excited as we were a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, but as a whole, I think Brentford have done extremely well. I think it's gone from a few years ago when you first came up, and probably now, even sort of no disrespect, there's probably teams that play Brentford and think, oh, this should be a straightforward game. But I think people underestimate Brentford still, maybe because of the reputation or the stature of the club, I don't know. But when you look at the job that Thomas Frank's done and how the team have adjusted this season as well, like you mentioned, just Ivan Toney's gone. Visser and Buemo, I have no doubt, there were links with them last summer. I have no doubt there'll be links this summer as well. But I think the club have done a fantastic job to keep hold of those types of players. I mean, we were heavily linked with Visser last summer. I know Forest were as well. And even, you'll have to tell me his name shortly, the lad that came in to replace Ivan Toney had a major injury, didn't he, for the majority of the season?
Igor Thiago, he was our record signing, and we've seen him play like minutes here and there. He's played less than 200 minutes, I'm pretty sure, which is bonkers.
Yeah. But like the adjustment, and I suppose as a Brentford fan, you must be really happy that they're able to keep the majority or the bulk of the top players. Obviously, you're going to have 1 or 2 go here and there, as we saw with Toney. But I mean, are you confident this summer that you can repeat that, or are you sort of half expecting a couple of these guys to go?
I think Brian and Bumo is the one that I think garners the most media attention and is the one that has been linked to moves away the most.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest, like they've all had, I mean, the front 3 in general, I wouldn't say it's like a crazy shout to say that we've got one of the best attacking trios in the league in Kevin Schade, Brian and Bumo and Johan Wissa. I think if you look at their numbers alone, only Barcelona and Bayern Munich have 3 players that have on plus 10 goals this season, and Brentford as well, which is like an incredible stat. So like all 3 of those have garnered quite a lot of attention this season. But Brian and Bumo, I think, is the one that is most likely to leave. Johan Wissa, though, I mean, he scored 19 non-penalty goals this season, and Brian and Bumo scored 19 goals. So you could say that Johan Wissa's had a better season than him. So I'm probably more confident about keeping Wissa and Schade than I am about Mbumo, just because I think there's been links to Newcastle. I think he could do a job kind of anywhere, especially when he's at his best. But yeah, it's like you mentioned, sort of the narrative was last season when we lost Ivan Toney was how they're going to cope. And I think this season, Brentford we kind of did play a new style last season as well, but we had so many injuries and obviously the Ivan Toney ban as well. So it wasn't really like the full product, the full package, call it what you will. This season, we've started to play the ball along the ground a lot more. There's a lot more variety to our game. And even if we did end up losing Brian and Bumo, I'm more than confident that the club will be able to kind of bring in a replacement or have one on the way already. People like Igor Thiago that you mentioned, who was brought in as Ivan Toney's replacement, he's expected to play a lot more football next season, as is Gustavo Nunes, who we signed from Gremio, who there was a lot of hype around him coming to the club, another one that spent the whole season pretty much injured. But I think for Brentford, coming so close this year and that kind of the middle gap or the middling clubs in the Premier League are looking as strong as they've ever looked. I think there'll be a strong incentive from Thomas Frank and a strong incentive for the ownership as well to kind of maybe look at this summer and be like, right, well, we've consolidated our status as a Premier League team now, going into our 5th consecutive season in the Prem. I think there'll be an incentive this summer for them to actually think, well, we're in a good position financially. Maybe this is the point where we can actually try and really go into a season with some ambition in terms of finishing in the top 8, top 7, top 6.
Definitely. If Mbuma were to go, what sort of valuation do you think the club would put on him?
I don't think it's crazy to ask for 60 million plus. I don't know what you think about that.
I think that's fair for someone with those sort of numbers, yeah.
I mean, you're looking at Mateus Cunha. Is it 65 to United? Is that
just
the fee
under
that's
65?
Been rumored?
Yeah.
I think with the amount of goals that he scored, with his age profile, I don't think it would be crazy to ask for 60 million plus. He's got a year left on his contract. We've got an option to extend that as well. So, I mean, in terms of who has the money, I think he's been quite heavily linked with Newcastle, which I think would be a really good move for him, to be fair. I know Jacob Murphy's had a really good season up there, but they don't really have like a a right wing that's contributing a lot of goals to the team. I know Jacob Murphy's got a lot of assists, but Brian Mbeumo would give you that kind of goal threat element, and he can play as like a second striker almost to Isak as well. So I'm prepared for a summer that's going to drag. I think it dragged with Ivan Toney, it dragged with David Raya, it dragged with Ollie Watkins when we sold him. It's going to be a long one because I know that the Brentford kind of the higher ups like playing hardball a little bit, and they'll fight to get the fee that they want. So, but yeah, I'm hoping for as much money as we can so that we can kind of use it for next season.
Yeah, part of you wants to obviously keep hold of these players, but another part of you just wants the sagas done and dealt with as soon as, really, isn't it? You know,
Exactly,
that's why I'm hoping for us with Cunha. Cunha's done and dusted as soon as, because we know he's going to go. But we'll I can't believe he's only 25 as well. Mbeumo.
Yeah,
I mean, I think he's just one of those that looks a little bit old. He seems like
you know,
he's been around a fair while as
if
well.
Brian Mbeumo had like a skin fade and shaved his beard off, he'd probably go for about 100, but he's bald at 25. So.
But yeah, I mean, 19 goals, 7 assists just in the league alone. I mean, that's a brilliant return. And like I said, we saw as well with a similar sort of record. Fair play to that Brentford front three. Is there anyone else in that team that maybe isn't being talked about as much as there maybe should be?
I think Mikkel Damsgaard, if you've not, or if Wolves fans haven't heard about his season, he recently picked up Players Player and Supporters Player of the Season at the awards, and from where we signed him from, I think everyone kind of remembers him from the Euros when he scored the goal against England in the semis, and then we signed him and he just struggled to kind of hit the ground running. He had a lot of injuries. He looked a little bit slight for the Prem, but this season, like, I've never seen a player just like completely turn his career around and suddenly turn into the best player on the pitch. Even in the game against User at the G-Tech, he was phenomenal. And particularly in the first half of the season, his chance creation, his 1v1 ability, even his defensive work. Like if you've got a bit of spare time, just go on FBref and look at some of his stats, because he's in the kind of 80th percentile plus of all of the defensive and attacking metrics in Europe's top 5 leagues. It's unbelievable. So yeah, Mikkel Damsgaard this season, I've been singing his praises to every single opposition fan that I've spoken to, because he's just been immense. And then another one that Wolves fans will be keen to hear about is Nathan Collins.
Yeah.
He's been like, our defensive record hasn't been that great this season, but I think he's got everything that you need to be like a top modern day centre half. He's got your traditional qualities, but he's so calm on the ball. He's going to be a future captain of Brentford once Christian Norgard probably leaves and sees out his contract. And we have kind of said, why did Wolves let him go? Because it seems like a bit of a steal for the price that he did. And he's now our best defender, and we're looking at him as if he's the kind of future of Brentford, because he's been that good this season. He's taken his game from someone who was a little bit inconsistent last season. We kind of labelled him as someone that was really, really good or really, really bad, and there was no kind of in between. But this season, he's just been rock solid throughout the whole campaign. So yeah, Nathan Collins and Mikkel Damsgaard have been class.
You'll be interested to hear people's thoughts in the comments on Nathan Collins, because at the time it was quite a weird transfer, because we'd only just signed him obviously the year before, and we didn't actually make much money on him really. I think we just about broke even, got a little bit of profit. But I think unfortunately that summer a lot of the transfer decisions were sort of dealt with and suggested by Lopetegui, who ended up leaving just weeks later anyway. There was a few players in that summer which were moved on, maybe unnecessarily, but I'm glad. I remember his first game back at Molineux for you guys, and it was only a few weeks into the season, I think, and a few Wolves fans booed him, and he just looked at the Wolves fans and shrugged like, "What? Why are you booing me?" So I don't think we'll see that on Sunday, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see the reception. But I'm glad that he's doing well anyway. And I suppose the one other area of speculation that we may see over the summer is Thomas Frank's future. I mean, he's done an unbelievable job. I'm sure most Brentford fans, absolutely adore the guy. Are you concerned about? I mean, there's certain teams. I mean, Spurs may have been one to look at, but I suppose they may well keep Postecoglou after this week. Is there any concern from you that there is a time that he's going to move on, and is it sooner than we think?
I hope not. I really hope not. It is concerning. I think the thing that kind of gives me a bit of hope is that Chelsea and Spurs. I feel like if he was going to move to a top 6 club, I'd imagine his preference would be to stay in London, because I think he's quite settled in London. But that's what makes it good that Chelsea are basket case, Spurs are pretty basket case as well, and obviously they just won the Europa League, so they might not even sack Ange potentially. But yeah, no, I am worried because I feel like Thomas Frank has shown. I feel like maybe people don't speak about it enough. Like Brentford are going into their fifth season in the Prem, and it's not like we've ever been kind of in a relegation fight. Really, I know last
No.
season was a little bit tight. Like the only way we've been looking since we've been in the Prem really is up, and he is just he continues to get the best out of players that you don't think maybe can do it at this level. Like honestly, if you look at like the spine of our team, and it was for the first three seasons in particular, it hadn't changed since the Championship that much at all,
Mm.
and he is just like the master of improving players, particularly attacking players as well. And yeah, I think he's an elite manager. I don't know if he's a sexy enough name to kind of garner the media attention as some clubs, as some other managers do. But I have no doubt that if he went to a club, maybe that didn't have a. The thing is, it's so difficult, right? Because Brentford, there's not that much pressure on it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go to one of those top six clubs, the scrutiny, just kind of the spotlight, is times 1,000. So it's difficult to kind of know how he'd get on, or if he lost his first few games, what the mood would be like. When he first came to Brentford, he lost 8 out of his first 10, but the board
Wow.
stuck by him,
Yeah.
because there's not as much pressure on that job as there is at Chelsea or an Arsenal or Newcastle or some of these bigger clubs. So the media attention is definitely different. I think if there was a club that were out there that wanted to not take a risk, but kind of people willing to stick by the manager through tough periods, then I think he could really, really take that next step. But I think he's an elite manager. I think he could do it anywhere, and I hope he never does, though.
Yeah, no, and who knows? I mean, with the way that Brentford have gone this season, like you mentioned earlier, the right recruitment and so on. I think it's really interesting this season, and I have no doubt Manchester United and Tottenham will improve next year, so it'll make their sort of the top half a little bit more competitive. But the bulk of sort of what I would class as like mid-table teams, like even we've petered off the last few weeks, but I do think like if we started a stronger run like earlier in December, there's every chance we could have made a late push. It was like four,
Oh
five,
yeah,
6 teams all pushing for a European spot. So there's no reason why that won't happen again, and there's no reason why Thomas Frank can't do it again with Brentford as well.
I don't think that gap sort of even if you look at the table, and I said this earlier in the season, I did like a video on it, but I don't think that gap from sort of eighth down to kind of 15th, 14th is actually that big. I know Man
No.
United and Tottenham have been like ridiculous this season, but I do people that say that sort of the Premier League's finished or the Premier League's washed. I think the quality has just been sky high this season, particularly from that middle group. I don't think there's much between Wolves and Brentford. I don't think there's much even between like sort of Arsenal down and the rest of the league. I think
Yeah,
it's a lot tighter than people think it is. And yeah, like I'm not surprised because you would dig on that little purple patch. It was the 6 in a row that you won.
yeah, 6 in a row, and then we
Yeah,
have lost three on the bounce since. But I think I mean, I'm looking at the table now. I could probably include Forest in it as well. So Forest in seventh, down
yeah,
to. I mean, you could include Spurs and United if you want, down to 17th. Like any of those teams could literally finish anywhere
uh-huh.
next season.
Yeah.
And I think
No.
it just depends on recruitment, consistency, injuries. Obviously, is a big part of it, and that's why next season it will be interesting. I think there's Wolves fans still probably slightly concerned about next season because our recruitment has just been all over the place over the last few years. But if they get it right, I mean, any club if they get it right, it'd be really, really interesting to see how next season goes. Anyway, but looking at Sunday, Mike, I mean, Brentford still got something to play for, in pretty good form. Bar that last result, you've been winning a lot of football matches. What do you reckon on Sunday? What's your prediction?
I think it's difficult. Brentford have got this thing where as soon as it looks like it might be in our hands, we kind of seem to bottle it a little bit. We did it in the Championship quite a bit. Obviously, the result on Saturday kind of softened the blow of Sunday against Fulham. But I cannot imagine Thomas Frank resting any players for this. I think, like I said earlier, the message has to be if there's a chance, we have to make sure that we're there. However, it's going to be difficult. Wasn't your lineup against Palace? There was a lot of players that hadn't played too much football this season.
Yeah, he rotated a lot, but I
Yeah,
think, I mean, we'll have his press conference later on. But I think he regretted that, to be fair. So
yeah.
half of me would assume he'd go full strength again on Sunday.
Well, yeah. I mean, last game of the season, you want to go out with a win, don't you?
Mm.
Especially after the kind of the job he's done, the run that you had. He'll want to kind of go out with a bit of a statement. So I think it might be tight. I'm hoping Brentford win, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a score draw.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, it would be good value if it was like a last day of the season, entertaining game, kind of a positive for both teams. We obviously need to win, or we could even need to draw potentially, but a win would be great. But I think don't know. I kind of looked at it as one of the difficult ones in our run-in. We had Fulham at home and Wolves away as the last two, and they were the most difficult fixtures, I thought, at the time.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if it was a 1-1 or a 2-2. But the optimist is saying 2-1 Brentford. So I'll go that.
No, I think you got it. I mean, I'm looking at some of the stats as well. I mean, they would have been flagged up throughout this video, but our form against Brentford hasn't been great over the last, lost the last two against you. You could get the double over us, obviously, this season, because the reverse fixture was an absolute disaster for Wolves. And that was sort of a real big sort of question mark over Gary O'Neill's future. But Wolves as well have lost their final league match in each of the last 7 seasons. So we haven't got great form at the end of the season. So we'll wait and see. But Mike, thanks for jumping on again. It's good to see Brentford have a really productive season. Where can people find you and your podcast if they wish?
At the Ealing Road podcast on X, Instagram, YouTube, and I have my own personal channels on TikTok and YouTube at Mike Lyman 5. So
perfect, mate. No worries. I'll make sure I link those in the description down below. And all the best for the summer, mate. And I'm sure I'll catch you again next season.
Nice one, Dave.
Cheers, mate. So big thanks to Mike once again for his thoughts ahead of Sunday's game. And I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully we can sign off with a decent result. Hopefully go for a couple of drinks afterwards. Hopefully the weather is quite nice and bright and warm as it is still right now in Wolverhampton. And yeah, I mean, let's stick my neck out. Say a score prediction of 2-1 Wolves, and hopefully, we enjoy the summer, guys. Look, I really appreciate your support on the channel. It's been the last 12 months. Genuinely, has been a hell of a lot better for me. I know, the 12 months before, it was a weird old time for me personally, and it was difficult sometimes to go in front of the camera, but a lot of you guys watched the videos, liked the videos, supported me, and this last 12 months has been a hell of a lot better. So, I do appreciate you guys helping me out with that as well, and I'm hoping that we could push Talking Walls to another level this summer. I've got loads planned in the pipeline. I'm hoping when the European tour, the pre-season tour, which I'm assuming is in Europe, is announced, I really hope I can go out to that and get some videos and footage there and content out there. And yeah, I really hope you guys can continue on with this journey with me, because I really do enjoy having you guys with me along the way. If you want to go and check out Match Bingo, once again, it's a link in the top of the description. If you buy 4 bingo cards, you'll get a 5th for free as well. So make sure you go and check that one out. As always, guys, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, look after yourselves, and I'll see you next season.